Show me the purple. Well, that's the way to start it. Actually, these are very different answers. He wants to be shown a purple, and other people want a definition of a purple. Gosh, even a definition of a good purple.
Show a bad purple and a good purple.
Say it again?
Show a good purple and a bad purple.
Well, okay. Okay. We've got a problem here with purples, don't we? See, the problem with apples wasn't as bad because we all sort of, we had some experience with apples and we sort of know what's a good and bad one, so we had something to get off the ground with. But if we're starting with stuff we can't get off the ground with, there's kind of a problem here. Now, the task of intellectual knowers. This is something William Alston calls taking the epistemic point of view. I don't know, I'm just using these terms here in case you're interested. Roderick Chisholm says that these are the two main duties of intellectual beings, insofar as they know things. And the task of those of us, our duty as knowers, is to take all the beliefs that we have, and we all believe many, 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 many things, don't we? And at the end of our lives, or as we make progress, to sort the true beliefs from the false beliefs, to hold on to the true ones, and to get rid of the false ones. Okay? That is to take the epistemic point of view. That's to care about truth and falsity. These are the duties of the knower. To obtain true beliefs and to get rid of false beliefs. You see the task. Now look, if only one of those was our task, it'd be easy to follow. Suppose that our task was to just, before we died, be sure that we believed everything that was true that we could possibly believe. Because would you agree with me that there are far more true propositions out there than you'll ever even be able to ponder in your lifetime? So we're all going to die missing a lot of truths that we could have believed if we'd have thought about it, right? Does that make sense to you? But if we wanted to increase our chances of having as many true beliefs as we could by the time we died, you just believe everything. Just believe everything you ever heard. How to do it. I guarantee you, if you believe everything you hear, if you could do such a thing, when you died, you would have fulfilled that epistemic duty better than anybody else, any other stance that you could have taken. Now, there's another approach that we could take, of course, and this would aid us in avoiding falsehoods, and this would be simply to disbelieve everything we've ever heard, right? That'd be easy. And that would guarantee that we would accept a minimum number of false beliefs before we passed away. The problem is that we want to maximize our holdings of true beliefs while at the same time minimizing our holdings of false beliefs. And that's what we've got to do. Now, how do we go about doing this? How do we start with the whole set of things we believe, as we all admit, some of them true, some false. We all have true and false beliefs. We all recognize that there are things that we could believe if we thought about them that are true, that are lying out there waiting for us to ponder them and accept them. Okay? How do we fulfill these tasks? 3 answers to the question. How do we engage in our sorting problem? The first answer is called Methodism. Not to be confused with John Wesley's denomination, though I do suspect there are more than a number of Methodists that are Methodists in this regard today anyway, though not Wesley. A Methodist says, before I can know anything, I have to have a criterion that answers the question how I know it. Before you can know anything, let's say any proposition P, before you can know any proposition P, that it's raining outside, that 2 and 2 is 4, that mercy is a virtue, whatever. Before you can know any proposition P, you have to actually know 2 other things. Okay? And here are the 2 other things you have to know. You have to know some criterion Q that tells you how you know that P is true, right? And then you'd have to know something R, namely that P satisfied your criterion Q. Say you know before you can know that P, there is an exit sign at the back of the room. I'm going to have a criterion. If something appears to my senses very clearly, then I can know that it's true. I have to have that criterion. And I'd also have to know that this sign and the way it appears to me satisfies my criterion. You see that? So on this view, before you can know anything, you have to be able to answer the question how it is you know it before you can know it. Now, Methodism, I hope you're sensing, is the wrong approach to the question. Obviously, one problem with it would be that if I have to have some criterion before I can know anything, I would have to then have a criterion for knowing my criterion. Because there have been debates about different criteria. Not everybody's agreed on what are the proper criteria for knowledge. And if I'm going to use some criterion Q to justify my knowledge that P, I'd have to have a criterion that would allow me to know my criterion was true, because criteria have been called into question, and there are many different criteria. Does that make sense to you at this point? Now, the difficulty then is that if you start by thinking you have to have criteria for knowledge that answers the question how you know before you can know anything, you'll end up in an infinite regress that won't end. It's called a vicious regress, and that is unacceptable. You won't be able to know anything on that regards. In fact, the skeptic will have you in deep trouble at that point. The skeptic is really the third position. I haven't mentioned the second one. I'll come back to it because the skeptic is the third position. And the skeptic says, since the first two don't work, the best conclusion is we don't know anything. So the skeptic thinks that the first two positions, the Methodist position and the one I'm about to tell you, don't work. And the skeptic concludes that since the other two strategies don't allow us to sort the true beliefs from the false beliefs, we don't know which are true and false, and we don't have any knowledge. Now, what is the second position? This liberated me in my ministry. I want to tell you a story before I share it with you. I have time to do this. I'd studied philosophy, and I'd read a little book by Roderick Chisholm called The Problem of the Criterion. It's 1973, Marquette University Press. A little brief book, 70-some pages. And I'd read this, and it had meant a lot to me. I got my doctorate. I was reading Discipleship Journal one day. And in Discipleship, it's a navigator journal on spiritual discipleship. In that book, in that journal, there was an article, and part of the article was recommending that disciples of Jesus Christ read the book The Problem of the Criterion by Roderick Chisholm. I was shocked, because you don't typically think of discipleship, people who are concerned about discipleship that get involved in reading philosophical works. But right in front of God and Lawrence Sanney and all the rest of them was this article in Discipleship Journal that was saying that people ought to grapple with the problem of the criterion if they're going to serve Jesus Christ. And I thought, what a country. This is exciting news, and that gave me hope that this concept of the problem of the criterion and the solution to it, that I think is the most plausible, could have a tremendous impact on people's personal lives. And boy, I tell you folks, as I'll show you later in my own witnessing and evangelistic and debating and dialoguing ministry, it's been tremendously useful. The second position, the third I'm giving you, but number two, is called particularism. Particularism. And the particularist says that we start as knowers. We start as knowers with particular examples of things we know. We start as knowers with particular examples of things that we know without needing to know how we know them. We start as knowers with particular examples of things that we know without having to know how we know them. Now let me give you some examples. And what I'm going to do now is give you examples of things I know that come from many areas of knowledge. Okay? I know that there's a podium here in front of me.